that's a very terrible thing that just happened. I think the NRA should move to Texas and lead a very good and beautiful life. And I've told them that for a long time. I think they should move to Texas.
Donald Trump obsessed with Texas. By the way, when he was going through that litany of all the things that Joe Biden hated, you notice he said guns, God, the Bible, and energy, certain sorts of energy. Why didn't he also add in like the Dallas Cowboys? It's so blatant that he's getting really nervous about Texas. And now he's saying, hey, suit in New York, move to Texas. That was, of course, President Trump with a piece of advice to the NRA after New York State's Attorney General Letitia James announced a lawsuit that seeks to dissolve the organization, accusing it of engaging in fraud and misrepresentation for decades. And with us now, the U.S. Attorney General, I'm not giving the promotion yet, the Attorney General for New York State, Letitia James. We're having some problems with video, but her audio is just fine. Thank you so much for being with us. And so let's start. Why the lawsuit? Why now?
So first, thank you for having me on your show this morning, and good morning. The NRA diverted millions and millions of dollars away from its charitable mission for personal use by senior leadership. They awarded contracts to get the financial gain of close associates and family. They appeared to dole out lucrative no-show contracts and no-bid contracts to former employees. They bought the silence of those who dissented, and they used these no-show contracts to basically get the loyalty of board members. It was all led by the face of the NRA, the executive vice president, Wayne LaPierre, and three other individuals who were part of leadership: his former treasurer, Wilson Phillips, his chief of staff, Joshua Powell, and the secretary, John Frazier. They basically pilfered and looted the NRA to the point where the NRA today is operating in a deficit.
So, Madam Attorney General, there are, as you know, there are even conservative writers, conservative commentators, and former supporters of the National Rifle Association who agree with you, agree with everything that you say. It looks like they have acted in the most corruptive ways for a very long time. The question is, why did you move to try to go after the entire organization instead of just these four national figures who have done so much to, again, according to your claims and the claims of a lot of reporters, to loot the NRA and actually steal funds from members?
Because the rot runs deep. It's pervasive. It's all throughout the corporation, throughout the 76-member committee. It's also in the audit committee, in the compensation committee. The committee failed to assure standard fiscal controls were in place. They failed to respond to whistleblowers, and there were a number of whistleblowers who complained about the misappropriation. They took steps to conceal the nature and the scope of whistleblower concerns from external auditors. They failed to review potential conflicts. There's a concept known in the law as related party transactions. There were a significant number of related party transactions, and they just ignored the law to the point where they may even be in violation of the Internal Revenue Code. And so that's why we are seeking to dissolve the NRA in its entirety, require these individuals to make full restitution to ensure that none of these individuals can ever serve on the board of a charity in New York State.
The scope of corruption, alleged corruption by your office and also by reporters, again, on both sides ideologically of the political aisle is absolutely stunning. One other criticism that Donald Trump, the Wall Street Journal opinion page, and others have had over the past day is the timing of this lawsuit, the question of whether you're putting this out there to influence the election, to stop them from being able to support Donald Trump and Republican candidates. Can you talk about the timing? Why August instead of, say, December?
So it's interesting that they would tie this to politics. And this lawsuit has nothing to do with politics. This lawsuit has to do with a violation of the law. This investigation began in 2019, and it recently concluded. And based upon the facts and based upon the analysis and the conclusion of law, it is clear that they use the NRA as their personal piggy bank. And it is my obligation and my responsibility to enforce the law in New York State. And that is exactly what we are doing without fear and or without favor. No one is above the law, including this most powerful organization, the NRA.
Attorney General James, it's Willie Geist.
I'm sorry,
ahead,
Willie, forgive me. We have a little delay. So was there something that required you to file it in August instead of waiting until after the election? Is there some reason why it needed to be filed now?
No, there was no time period by which we had to file this lawsuit. We file lawsuits when we conclude our investigations and we analyze and apply the law. That's when we file our lawsuits. We don't look at the political calendar to determine when we should or not file a lawsuit.
Attorney General James, it's Willie Geist. Great to have you on this morning. As Joe mentioned, I suspect there are perhaps millions of members of the NRA who will agree with what you've said. NRA members who are disgusted by the grotesque spending and the lavish trips and the $13.5 million you uncovered paid to a personal travel consultant to Wayne LaPierre over the course of 6.5 months. So they may say to this, yeah, let's get rid of Wayne LaPierre. Let's get rid of our leadership that's blowing our money on yachts in the Bahamas. But we have an organization that's here to protect our constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. So what do you say to that membership when you're not just trying to decapitate the organization, but get rid of it altogether?
The mission was violated. The reality is that it goes beyond just Wayne LaPierre. Again, you talked about some of the instances that are outlined in our complaint. But again, the corruption runs very deep. It extends to the 76-member board. It extends to the audit committee. It extends to the compensation committee. It extends again to individuals who served, again, not on behalf of the donors, but on behalf of Wayne LaPierre, who traveled extensively to safaris in Africa, who spent millions of dollars on unwanted travel consultants, who did a post-employment contract for $17 million, who allotted several million dollars for private security costs, for trips to the Bahamas, for reimbursement in a 4-year period for gifts to friends and vendors, and the lucrative consulting contracts, and then a pass-through vendor that he used for side deals. Again, the corruption is pervasive, it's persistent, it's not limited to one person, it's throughout the entire corporation, and that's why we seek to dissolve the corporation in its entirety.
Attorney General James, it's Susan Del Percio here.
Hi.
How are you? It's great that you're, pursuing these types of cases, and when there's corruption and it's found, it should be pursued. You also had a case against the Trump Foundation where basically they had to give back almost $2 million. But there is a political sense in all of this, and I wonder if maybe perhaps it's because you're looking towards 2022 for governor.
By no means am I looking at 2022. I am of the belief that elected officials don't have to look at their next re-election cycle as long as they continue to do their work. And each and every day I wake up to do my work and enforce the law. And so it's really critically important that individuals understand that no one is above the law, including the NRA. and that they grossly misused these funds for personal use over a period of time. And it's important that individuals understand that they concealed the very nature of these illegal expenditures. It's also important to understand that they also may have violated the Internal Revenue Code. And so this may rise to another level. And so our investigation is ongoing, but our investigation had nothing to do with politics, but all to do with the fact that they flouted the law, and they thought that they could get away with it. They were an unchecked organization. And after our intensive investigation, we decided to file this litigation because it was persistent and pervasive.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the NRA this morning. They've said of your suit that it is a transparent attempt to score political points. They say basically you've had it out for the NRA for a long time in 2018, calling it a terrorist organization. How do you respond to the NRA?
One has nothing to do with the other. My political beliefs have nothing to do with the fact that litigation and lawsuits that we filed are based on the facts. We follow the evidence, and we make conclusions of law. And the facts are bared out in this over 150-page complaint. And I urge everyone to read it for themselves. It is clear that the leaders of the NRA, under the leadership of Wayne LaPierre, who was the face of the NRA for several decades, violated the law, put themselves above the law, and did it for his own personal gain and that of his family and his close associates.
Mike Barnicle has a question for you. Mike?
So, General James, based upon this conversation this morning and based upon your 150-page complaint, is it the intent of your lawsuit, is it to eliminate Wayne LaPierre and his executive board from their jobs, or is it to eliminate the NRA?
There are 18 causes of action, and for the years of fraud and misconduct, we are seeking an order to dissolve the NRA in its entirety, to require Mr. LaPierre, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Powell, and Mr. Frazier to make full restitution for funds they unlawfully profited from, and the excessive salaries they earned while employees and to pay penalties. In addition, to remove them from the leadership immediately and to ensure that none of the four individuals can ever serve on the board of a charity in New York State again. That is what we are seeking. And it will be up to a judge to decide whether or not we are successful in getting that relief.
Attorney General James, do you expect any criminal referrals out of this?
Our investigation is still ongoing. At this point, this investigation, this complaint primarily is civil in nature and not criminal. If in fact we uncover any criminal activity, we will make a referral to the District Attorney of Manhattan, Mr. Cy Vance.
All right. New York Attorney General Letitia James, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you being so generous with your time and hope to hear from you again soon.